beautiful, cool, and pleasant morning here, which means it's perfect to light something up. Using what I learned with my last episode with the big can, I've decided to go to see if I can push the big can to do a large copper melt. I've never used my large crucible before to do a copper melt, so we're going to give it a shot. The reason why the weather is relevant is that the last time I did this, it was just really hot, and I bought a lot of personal protective equipment, but I can't wear it if it's 90 degrees out here. So luckily it's more like 70. So we're going to fire that up, and if we manage to melt what's in there, we're going to slowly add this and see how much we can produce. If I can get that much, that's probably, I don't know, maybe a kilogram of metal. That would be, maybe not that much, but it would still be exciting to make that much molten copper in one go. The basket is in order to use the waste heat to preheat to follow copper so that it doesn't cool off the crucible too much. While that copper is on the roast, I wanted to turn my attention to the subject of the muffin tin for a minute. You remember what happened here, where these things got brazed into the muffin tin. This is my proposed solution. So we'll pour in there. This thing's been allowed to dry, and then I baked it off in the oven overnight in order to make sure that it was as dry as it could be. I don't want any steam explosions. So that's what we'll pour into. Well, we're hot. I'm going to go further than we're hot and say we're really hot. It's hot enough that I turned we're hot enough that I kind of melted my basket, and all of my copper's gotten sort of oxidized, so I'm going to start feeding this sucker and get my equipment on. Always thought I'd wear chaps, but I always figured it would be in a porno. I suppose this could be considered melting porn. Yeah, it's really hot in there. I'll see if I can show you a picture. I might call this frighteningly hot. It's pretty hot. It's not, unfortunately, copper melting hot. Or at least not yet. But it's pretty hot. That's what I got. That, my friends, is a hot fire. I'll stoke it up a little bit more and let it rip and see if I can get that copper to reduce. I know that I managed to melt it because about 10 minutes ago I refilled the crucible, and the crucible was full before, so I must have made room through melting. The only real problem is that this thing is so hot it scares me. It reminds me of a couple of relationships I've had in the past, frankly, and as you know, when you're in a hot relationship, you need to protect yourself. So let me get protected here, and we're going to pour this stuff out. Now, you got to move fast. According to the interwebs, I've never made molten copper in quantity, but if you don't move fast, it'll freeze up on you. So, probably won't do a lot of talking here because I'm going to be scared. Well, there's definitely molten copper in there. There's a lot of molten copper in there. Oh, that's so hot. God. Check out that crucible. That's a hot crucible. Wow. Still a little water in that plaster. that copper boiling the water out of that plaster. Well, on the principle that what's worth doing is worth doing to excess, maybe we'll try another round here. I'm pretty sure my batch number 2 is pretty well reduced, so let's pour that off. Sorry, just donning my gloves here. I didn't like that annoying spitting. I'm going to try pouring into my homemade crucibles here. Once I've done that, I'm almost out of charcoal, but I've got this slag from the first time I fired up the big can, the stuff that overflowed out of the crucible. I'm going to drop it in there at this temperature. I can't imagine it'll take but a couple of minutes to melt that. Sorry for the crack if you got some. Well, no annoying spitting from my homemade fired crucibles. That's nice. So that camera ran out while I was in the midst of melting my second batch. Here's my results. I got a little over 2 kilograms of melted copper. It's very heavy. It's not pretty. Still have technique work to do. And my hands just got too hot. I definitely still need to work on hand protection. Here's one of those cups that I just melted the copper out of. Remember my old muffin tin that they got brazed into. I haven't found the other muffin tin cup yet. This did work. I was able to pour into a plaster mold without brazing onto it, although it does have plaster on it. Plus, turns out the thermal shock was really kind of too much for the plaster, and I'm not sure if you could see it, but it was spitting these little balls of copper, because even though I'd carefully sort of de-watered it, it was still bubbling something fierce. I was really glad I had all that personal protective equipment on. These things did okay. I was able to pour into them without an issue. They seem to tolerate the heat stress just fine. It is funny because there was still some bubbling on the underside of these ingots when I poured, so I haven't quite got that one figured out yet. Now that I am reliably slip casting, I can probably do something like this. I can produce one of these slip casts. I poured this one last night. I poured this one last night, and I demolded it this afternoon when I got home. So less than 24 hours. It's still sort of leather hard, but I've clearly learned how to do that. I just need to get better at firing them. Only other thing I wanted to mention was this. This is the brick that I left in the big can. There's the brick. I melted it. That glass right there, that's melted brick. It's quite something. This is one of the holes in the brick. That takes about 1650 degrees Celsius. I think that's the highest temperature I've ever obtained. Look at that thing. Kind of looks like a little anus or something. That's the highest pressure or highest temperature I've ever attained that I know of. The previous high that I know I got to was about 1350 when I melted the cast iron in that retort. So, congratulations to me. I hit a new high. Probably should have tried making some glass while the thing was hot, but I didn't. So anyway, that's where we are. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you want. I'm going to continue on. I've still got at least twice this much copper left to go, but I'm out of charcoal because it took a lot of charcoal to melt this. It takes a lot of charcoal to melt copper. And I'm determined not to succumb to the siren song of propane. So there we go. Liking and subscribing would be fun. You don't have to, but if you want to, I'd appreciate it. Telling friends, you know, that kind of stuff, all good. Oh, look. My slip-casted crucible top finally unmolded. It doesn't look very good, but we'll try it anyway. Okay. See you later. Thanks for watching. A couple of other things that I forgot to show you that I dredged up out of the bottom of the big can. There's 300 grams of aluminum that just represented the tail end of some pieces I needed to dispose of. This is a big chunk of concretion or slag, 300 grams, that I dragged off the bottom. When you look at it, I don't think there's any doubt there's some copper in there. Here's one of my biscuits shined up. It's kind of cool looking. So I don't think there's any doubt there's copper in there. Here's a chunk of aluminum. I honestly don't know what the rest of it is. It's a little bit brittle, so that's probably some piece of busted slaggy brick. I have no idea what to do with this. So there you go. A couple more pieces of slaggy brick that didn't make it into the big chunk. And there is the other cup from my old muffin tin. Pretty bunged up. It went in looking like that. Okay, so that's all I've got for that one. Thank you very much.